Canadian baseball fans have really enjoyed looking back at the 92, 93 World Series games. And joining me to talk a little bit about that 1993 championship run is our good friend, World Series champion Pat Hentgen, also a three-time All-Star, a Cy Young Award winner, and if you're lucky enough, like I am, to bump into him in Dunedin, he's the Blue Jays special assistant. You know, Pat, it seems like a lifetime ago, you, me, and Buck Martinez were sitting at a table in front of the Blue Jays clubhouse there at spring training. So much has happened in our world. How are you and your family doing?
Oh, very well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, all five of us are here. My three daughters and my wife. We've been here for, well, Monday will be 3 weeks now. And, some unintended good things may happen from all this stuff that's going on. Hopefully, we'll just flatten the curve and everybody can stay safe.
Yeah, that's right. And Blue Jays fans have been helping to flatten the curve by watching these games. Now, let's go take a trip down memory lane here. I know you didn't get an opportunity to pitch in the 92 World Series. So, game three in that 93 run was your very first start at a fall classic game. So, the series is now tied, and you guys are in Philadelphia. So, before we get to your performance on the mound, where was your mindset the night before? Were you anxious? Were you nervous going into the start?
Of course. I mean, I was nervous on regular season games. So for me to, in a World Series at a young age, my second year in the big leagues, third year really, I remember the hour and a half rain delay in Philly. I remember pacing the locker room and walking out into the tunnel and running into my parents, which was really cool. And then warm up in the game, right before the start of the game, I remember people yelling from the second deck, Billy Joel, you can't handle the pressure. Uh, yeah, yeah. And, we had a great offense. I think we scored three. Well, we did score three in the first, and it makes a big difference for a starting pitcher when you get three runs like that. I went out in the first inning, and I got myself in a jam right away. And I remember Molitor played first that day, and he never really played first a whole lot.
Yeah.
And Crook ball down the line, and he came and handed me the ball, and the crowd's so loud I could barely hear him. He got right up next to me. He said, "I'm sorry, I should have had that." That's what he said to me. "I'm sorry, I should have had that one." So we got out of there unscathed and was able to get out of that inning and go on to get the win.
Now, you mentioned running into your parents. I got to ask you, when you ran into them, did you have a conversation with them? Were they kind of get you motivated? Like, what was the conversation like with your folks?
Oh, it was quick and it was simple. They were pacing underneath the tunnel in the family section. I went out just because I was pacing as well. Remember, hour and a half rain delay. I
Yeah.
just looked at I said, "This is incredible, isn't it?" And I remember my dad just said, "Oh yeah." He said, "It's awesome. It's awesome." And he didn't talk to me much because he knew that it was my pregame mindset. So it was a little bit out of the norm to have a rain delay and a little bit out of the norm to run into your parents. But it was a great experience. I'll never forget it.
This Phillies lineup, they were no joke. The first guy you face in that bottom of the first inning is Lenny Dykstra, who was at the time, an MVP candidate in the National League. So you strike him out. That's the first guy you face. How did striking him out kind of change your mentality and your confidence level?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's for a starting pitcher, that first out of every start is very important, and it definitely eases the nerves. Again, it's so loud you can't hear your teammates, you can't hear anybody. We're all doing kind of visual type of communication, and I just was able to throw strikes and make a good pitch on him, and luckily he swung through it. But you're right; it's a big, like a 50-pound bag gets taken off your shoulders when you get that first out.
And you were terrific. Yeah, one earned run over 6 innings. What do you remember, Pat, about navigating through that Phillies lineup? I think Jim Fregosi called his lineup, Macho Row, and we had some pretty big deal guys, big hitters on that Phillies lineup. What did you think about them?
I think about that first inning, and I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Dalton who swung through a high fastball, and I think it was 3-2. I may have walked him if he would have taken the pitch. So I remember thinking I got a little bit lucky there because good big league hitters usually don't chase too many pitches out of the zone, and he did in that situation. RBI situation, maybe a little bit more aggressive. But yeah, no, it was a great lineup. I mean, anytime you play in the big leagues, you face a lot of really good lineups. I didn't really get focused on the individual player. I just tried to manage my way through the lineup, and that's trying to keep the big inning from happening and also the walks down.
Now, you were in line to pitch game seven before Joe Carter ended it. I want to take you back to or forward to game six. At what point did you think this one might go the distance and I may have to mentally prepare myself for a game seven?
Oh man, I was so nervous. We were charting that. As a part of starting pitcher back then, you charted the game before you pitched, and I'm charting game 6. I'm in the dugout. I'm charting from the water cooler, which is the furthest edge of the dugout from home plate. And I remember when Joe hit that ball, all I thought was stay fair, because he hooked everything. He was such a dead pull hitter. And for me, I just remember thinking, I'm gonna pitch game 7. It's gonna come down to 180 games, and it's gonna come down to me pitching game 7. I remember thinking, what the hell is Cito thinking? You know? And looking back on it, it was just a great experience. And Joe's ball obviously stayed fair, and it was touch 'em all, Joe, the famous saying from Tom, and just great memories. But I was nervous as can be honest with you.
It's funny because I remember you saying that, as dramatic as a home run Joe Carter hit in game 6, that and your game 3 start wasn't the highlight for you during that championship run. So, what was the highlight for you?
Oh, the highlight for me in my whole career, not just that series, was the game 4. We were down by 3 runs on the road, and it was the 15-14 game. And I just never forget the feeling that I had. I get goosebumps thinking about it right now. All these years later, is after the game, we win the game 15-14, and lo and behold, we go into that clubhouse in Philly. It was a small clubhouse back then compared to the newer ones now, and all 25 of us were in a circle, clapping at the same time. I mean, it was just an incredible feeling. I talk to my teammates about it every time we see each other, and we all get so excited about that moment. It was a 15-14 game, the highlight of my career, and I didn't even play in the game. That's what's funny. So it's a memory I'll never forget for sure.
I talked to Pat Borders about those championship years, and he told me now, as a skipper of the Clearwater Threshers, he models his managerial style after Cito Gaston. Now, Pat, you see Cito now post playing career. Why do you think he was the right manager for those championship teams?
Well, I think he was definitely a player's manager. I think that he had really good feel when it came to when to pat a guy on the back and when to get on his butt, if you will, so he was good at that. He was good at being able to charge a guy. He was good at being able to pat a guy on the back. He was good about giving days off. He was good about warning a guy the day before, hey, you're gonna not play tomorrow. I just want to give you the heads up, or come and talk to me. His door was always open. Like most managers, they're not real fond of pitchers, but you need them. So you need pitching to win, and I think Cito recognized that. And we just, when I look back, Cito was a really good manager. I really feel thrilled that I could play for him. I'm still friends with him now, and when we see each other, we always reminisce. It's good times.
Before I let you go, I mentioned Borders, that he was always a steadying force for that rotation. Um, People refer to him as this improbable World Series most valuable player. Uh, how would you, I guess, describe Borders as a receiver? How good a catcher was he?
He's a very good catcher, very good defensive catcher. I always tell people he was like a 5-foot piece of fence trying to get a ball by him. He was a great blocker. He was extremely durable, extremely tough. And, I remember I would stick a ball up and into the righty, and he would call for it, oh, oh. And if you stuck it and you hit his glove, he'd put his glove up to you like, good job. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm 1-0. The umpire called the ball. How is that a good job? But then as you learn and you evolve as a pitcher, you realize that one pitch sets up the next,
Yeah.
and that you're sending a message early in the count. And Pat was another guy that could build your confidence, too. He was a good guy. He was a good teammate.
Listen, before I thank you and sign off, I understand you've kind of moved over to the dark side and joined Twitter. Your handle is at Pat Hentgen. What made you come on the scene at social media, and how are you finding Twitter?
So, you know what? It's funny. I've been on Twitter for a few years. I use it. It's one of my go-tos. I just haven't tweeted much and been real active.
Okay.
So since the quarantine, I've been trying to be more active and trying to retweet stuff and following more people. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm having some good conversations with the fans, and I'm going to continue to do it.
All right. Well, I am one of your followers, and I hope a lot more Blue Jays fans will follow you as well at P. Hentgen. Pat Hentgen, always, always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you, hopefully, at a baseball field sooner rather than later. Thanks for doing this.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Stay safe, everyone.